Breaking news. Today, Athletic Director Jim Smith of the University of Maryland announced that Mike Locksley, head football coach, will be returning in 2026. This is after another loss yesterday to Illinois. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am a diehard, and I do mean diehard Maryland football fan and season ticket holder. And over the past couple seasons, there has been a hot debate on whether Coach Locke should get the boot. After going for three straight bowl wins, Coach Locksley is likely on the verge of missing the bowl season 2 years in a row here. Maryland football didn't win a game in the month of October for the second year in a row. And frankly, I do not know if they're going to win a game in November this year. This team is not a good football team. However, I understand why I get why people want to get rid of Coach Locksley. The product on the field, even I will admit, as a guy that's a pretty big Lock supporter, isn't good. However, I think there's three factors today that affected why Jim Smith brought Coach Locks back, and three factors that I think are pretty overwhelming into why you shouldn't fire Coach Locksley right now. And that's not me talking as a fan. That's me just talking as someone that cares about the team. But hey, I'm Blitz Pizza. Let's get into this. So for our first factor here, and I think it's pretty important to understand this, it's money. The University of Maryland is not an athletic program that is flush with cash. We're not talking about a blue blood here at the top of the Big Ten or the SEC. Granted, Maryland is in the Big Ten, but they haven't even started receiving full payments from the revenue share from the Big Ten's TV contracts yet. This is truly one of the poorer programs, I would say, in major Division I sports, especially on the football side. They don't have it when it comes to getting rid of Coach Locks, and what I mean by getting rid of is a buyout, because he has some years left on his contract now. You can't just fire him. You're going to have to buy him out. And then you're going to have to buy out Pep Hamilton and defensive coordinator Ted Monachino and Abzar Abdul-Rahim. I mean, you're going to have to buy out this whole staff likely. And this program can't afford that right now. Maybe in a couple of years when we start getting full revenue shares, then yeah, Maryland can get that. The other day, I know the Big Ten, the private equity thing passed as well. Maybe in a couple of years, they'll have some cash to do that. But right now, they have to play this like a slow burn. You can't be getting rid of guys, especially someone like Mike Locksley, who has shown a willingness to stay at Maryland, and Maryland really is his dream job. Now, the second factor here that I think is even more important is the talent. Anyone that watched this team can tell you one thing. Mike Locksley's claim to fame and why he was going to get the head coaching job at Maryland, and why he ultimately did, was because he could recruit the DMV. If you don't know what that is, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, the DMV metro area, or I should say just the DC metro area. Also throw Baltimore in there, sort of, kind of. And the 757, which is the Virginia Beach area, which is not the DMV, but some people throw it in there for recruiting purposes. Nonetheless, Coach Locks is able to recruit this area. Look at our current team. You see players like Malik Washington, Sidney Stewart is another one, another Maryland guy, Nasir Taylor. These guys from the area, from these top tier programs that Coach Locks was able to get here. That doesn't happen if he ain't here. And frankly, if you fire him, those guys leave. And in particular, the one you really want to stay, well, there's a couple you really want to stay, but number one is the quarterback, Malik Washington. You need Malik. I can't lie. Malik has shown the ability to, I think, be a top tier passer in college football. His eventual scouting report, when you saw at 247 Sports, had him listed as a guy that has NFL potential. I think he's flashed that several times. He's 6'5", he can move, he's mobile, he's got a good arm. Obviously this season he has struggled, but you know what? He is a true freshman starting in one of the hardest conferences in the Big Ten. And I think, frankly, that he's looked pretty good. Really has. If he transfers, who is Maryland getting to play quarterback? Because I can promise you this. There is not at least right now, I don't see a 4 or 5 star quarterback in the pipeline here. That'll come. If there is a 4 or 5 star quarterback out there, why would they come to Maryland fresh off of losing our offensive guru head coach? You know, this is something Jim Smith has to think about. And not just Malik. Look at the rest of the team. Let's be honest. This last freshman class that Coach Locksley brought in, frankly, has balled out. Sidney Stewart and Zahir Mathis on the edges have been game wreckers. Game wreckers. Both of those guys look like players that, in my opinion, could become first-team All-Big Ten caliber players later on in their careers. Future first-round picks, especially Sidney Stewart. So explosive. So explosive. If Mike Locksley's gone, he's gone. And then who rushes the passer? Moving into the current recruiting class, 2026 class, right now, they have the number 2 commit in the entire country committed. Zion Neely, edge rusher. This dude is 6'2", 240, and runs a 4.35 40-yard dash. He's a freak. He's already said he's coming to Maryland next year as long as Coach Locksley is here. And you know something? If I'm the athletic director of Jim Smith, that would have weighed on me. I'm sorry. There is the makings here of truly a really good football team. And I haven't even talked about guys like Messiah Delhomme on the back end who's played, the young offensive linemen that have come in and looked good. I know he got hurt earlier this year, but Jalen Gilchrist looked really, really good. You got guys like the Mountain, Howerton. He looks absolutely great as a young man. Another young player I've watched as well is Armory Hills. He's been coming in. A lot of young talent on this team that frankly was not at Maryland before Coach Locks. Anybody here that was a fan of this team during the Randy Edsel era knows how difficult it was to get high-level talent in this area to stay. And for the first time in my time being a fan, I'm only 28 years old, high-level talent is willing to stay at the University of Maryland. That is not lost on me, and I know that was not lost on Jim Smith. Third, and the biggest factor, I think, the team isn't winning. Yes, I'll admit that. The team's not winning. But do you know something else? The team is not that bad. It really isn't. Like, this is a team that starts several true freshmen at very key positions. I'm talking about quarterback, both edge rushers. If you look at the back end at their corners, they got a little bit older this year by getting some transfers in Jamari Glasker and Dante Joyner. However, there's still a lot of true freshmen and sophomores that play, whether it be Braden Lee or Kevin Humes. That's just off the top of my head. This team is full, and I do mean full at every position. I could go to the D-line this year. You got guys like Bryce Jenkins on the interior, who I didn't even talk about. I already brought up Sidney Stewart as I hear Mathis at linebacker. CJ Carlton Smith is already kind of starting, you know what I mean, and making an impact. He's hitting guys. He's blowing guys up. 3 levels of our defense have first-year impact players. Like I said, on the offensive side, we've got a lot of young tight ends that they just brought. We have Willie Taggart's son. I cannot believe I'm forgetting his first name right now. The dude is a 6'7", 6'8" tight end. I can't wait for them to put some muscle on him and play. You know? And when I look at this current team now, and I watch them play, they just don't have depth. That's the issue. The issue is those second wave guys that come in aren't ready. They're either, I would say, too young or aren't to the caliber of player that we need at this level. But I think that is something that is quickly being remedied here. In Jim Smith's message today, he said that he wasn't just going to bring Coach Locksley back, he was going to bring Coach Locksley back with significant financial support. Something that I have begged for years as a fan, and I generally do mean years, is for the department to actually back Coach Locks up. And what I mean by back him up is give him a budget comparable to that, not at the bottom tier of the Big Ten, but at least the middle. I'm not saying we have to be Ohio State or Michigan, but we can at least financially spend as much as Purdue or Minnesota, you know? And we weren't doing that before. We were down at Northwestern levels, truly at the bottom. You know, if someone that doesn't know the Big Ten, I would say for the longest time, Maryland spent like the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten. And if you know anything about the SEC, you get what I'm saying. Vanderbilt started to spend now, but they didn't used to. The University of Maryland needs to start spending. Coach Locksley, to be successful, this is honestly what I think he needs. First, he needs a good staff. You know, and I'm talking about a great offensive coordinator, a good defensive coordinator. I think he has a really good defensive coordinator this year in Ted Monachino. I really like what he's done with the defense. I hope they bring him back. Offensively, I have not been thrilled with Pep Hamilton. Don't know what they're going to do there, but Locks really needs a good OC. 2, it's the players, and that's what he does best. But to get those players, especially in this landscape, you got to compete with NIL, you know? When Coach Locks first got the job, I remember the big thing was, hey, the Jones Hill house. We got the new Jones Hills houses done. And it's a gorgeous place. It's gorgeous. You know, $30-40 million building, absolutely beautiful. I'm glad they have it. But you know something? That's not bringing in the recruits anymore. It isn't. You're not going to get the Anthony Sweeneys, who's a probably 5-star in 2027, and the Miles McPhees in 2027, with that. What you get him with is what we got Zion Ely with, and that's not an out package. You need the money. But do you know if we had even more money, we probably could have got Zion Ely, Emmanuel Iheanacho, Jaron Edwards, Kihari Adams. These were all 5-star talents that were in our backyard. We got one of them. You're not going to be able to keep most of them every year, but hey, you start keeping half of these guys, I promise you, we will compete with the big boys all across college football. But like I said for this last point, because I definitely did just get off on a tangent right there, this current team really isn't that bad. When I watch them play, it is truly a lot of freshman error. It's Malik Washington not setting his feet right on a throw, or it's guys getting lost on the back end, or true freshmen, or people not making their tackles. And more importantly, I've seen this, the team being able to kind of hang around in the beginning of games, and in that second half, not really find it. And I think that's going to come with time and experience. Like I said, this is a young team. I believe they only have about 7 or 8 seniors. And off the top of my head, the only senior that really starts on defense that makes an impact is Jalen Husky. And on offense, I'm trying to think about seniors that really make a huge impact. There's a couple senior receivers, but frankly, they haven't made impact all year. No, this is a young, and I do mean young team. They're going to get better. And I do think there's going to be a brighter day here for Maryland football coming soon. We actually just have to hold a course right now. Then we got to stick with Coach Locks. I know this sounds terrible. I know you're yelling at the screen right now saying, dude, no, let him go. But genuinely, I think he's the man for this job. He really is. I will leave with this. I remember the Pittsburgh Steelers, They are one of the best organizations in all sports. Bill Cowher was their coach for the longest time, didn't win. And then boom, he broke through. Same thing with Mike Tomlin. Broke through. I think Coach Locks is more in the mold of like a Tomlin, where he's going to break through one of these days. It's just the consistency and surrounding him with the right staff. Now, I know this video has been very disjointed. I kind of just want to come on here and talk my thoughts real quick, especially because, this is really just breaking news. I'm planning a lot more stuff. This was my big, I don't want to say big return, but return. I really want to talk to you guys more about sports. I love sports. Life has been insane for the past couple of years, and sports has really been able to keep me grounded. So I really want to grow this channel and just make a community, a community where no matter what you're going through, come sit down with Blitz here. Let's have some pizza and let's talk some sports, all right? Thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Just to let you know, I got some other long-form content coming out, which will be a lot more succinct, a lot more in order, a lot more organized. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Either way, I'm out of here.